Hey there, this is Kenneth Moore, and you're now watching Zion's Watchman Media. And to start off this week's video, we're going to start off with a quote. Speaking of the work of mothers, it says, "There is no other work that can equal this. To a very great extent, the mother holds in her own hands the destiny of her children. She is dealing with developing minds and characters, working not alone for time but for eternity. She is sowing seed that will spring up and bear fruit, either for good or for evil. She has not to paint a form of beauty upon canvas or to chisel it from marble, but to impress upon a human soul the image of the divine. Especially during their early years, the responsibility rests upon her of forming the character of her children. The impressions now made upon their developing minds will remain with them all through life." Amazing, did you get that? It said that there is no work equal to this work, the work of the mother, which means that this is the highest work that has been given to humanity. And I believe that this is clearly illustrated in the birth and early life of Moses. All the way back in the first chapter of the book of Exodus, we read the story of how the Israelites had fallen into slavery. You see, the nation of Israel had prospered greatly under the rulership of Joseph, the Hebrew governor of Egypt, who had come along and saved Egypt from a deadly famine. Under his leadership, Israel had prospered greatly into a very powerful nation with many skilled workers contributing to the wealth of Egypt. But this would all change, for the Bible says that after Joseph's death, there arose up another Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. In other words, not that he did not know who Joseph was, but instead he chose not to remember Joseph. And fearing that if a war broke out between the surrounding nations, that the Israelites would join the other side and fight against the Egyptians, it was decided by the king of Egypt and his counselors that the Israelites would become slaves and lose their freedoms. You see, the king of Egypt by this wished to crush out Israel's independent spirit, but the Bible says that the more they were afflicted, the more they grew. The king then resorted to a foul move and ordered certain of the women of Israel to go and slay the male babies born among the Israelite women. But these were God-fearing women, and they refused the king's commandment. The king then, enraged by his failed plan, resorted to an even more desperate measure and gave a national order to slay all of the male babies born among the Israelites by taking them and throwing them into the river. You see, Satan was the great mastermind behind this, for he knew that very soon a deliverer would arise up in Israel to deliver them from their bondage, and it was his purpose through the king of Egypt and these cruel commands to prevent this divine fulfillment from taking place. But the Bible says that there was one couple who did not go along with the king's commandment, and we read about them in Hebrews chapter 11 verse 23. "By faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment." Could this child be the coming deliverer, they thought? By faith they hid the child for 3 months, and when they saw that this would no longer work, they put him into a basket and floated him down on the river. Providentially, through the leading of angels, this child was led to the daughter of Pharaoh, who upon opening this basket read the story clearly of how some Israelite mother had desperately wished to save her child from the king's commandment. This touched her heart, and she decided there that she would adopt this child as her own. And from this instance here, the child received his name, Moses, which means drawn, for he was drawn from the waters. After this, the daughter of Pharaoh allowed for Moses to be nursed and raised by his real mother. And his real mother, feeling certain that this child had been saved for some special purpose, made it her mission to raise this child correctly. And through much prayer and instruction, she instilled in his mind lessons of truth mixed with mercy, while at the same time she showed him the folly of idolatry and sin. Moses was early on taught to pray and to look upon God as his helper in every difficult situation. This education for Moses proved to be invaluable to him, for the character is most impressionable during the early years, and this is what enabled him to remain firm when he went into the palace of Egypt, surrounded by all of the idolatry and sin. Amazing, what a work this Hebrew mother did, an exile and a slave, molding and shaping the character of Moses. Do you think Israel would have had the same mighty deliverer as they did if she had been too busy or negligent to do this work? Probably not. Do you think Moses would have remained firm in the palace of Egypt if she had been too busy or careless to really mold and train him? Probably not. Do you see it? This woman here laid the foundation for the one who was to later go on and become the deliverer of her people. Sadly today though, this high and noble work has been lost sight of, with so many mothers being caught up with wealth, money, chasing position, status, that they neglect this important work. And while there is nothing wrong for a woman to have a job or to work if it is necessary for the family to survive, this is not her highest calling or her highest work. Her highest place where she can be most effective, the mother, is actually in the home raising her children. Dear brothers and sisters, we will soon see at the end of this that much of the pain and confusion and suffering and death of our world was actually a result of a neglect of this work. While at the same time it will be shown clearly that much of the genius and nobility of mankind actually stemmed from a God-fearing, praying mother who understood the importance of her work. Dear mothers, I challenge you to take up this high and noble forgotten work, the highest work that no other work can equal to for humanity, the shaping of young minds for eternity, impressing upon the human heart the image of the divine. This has been Kenneth Moore from Zion's Watchman Media, and as always, until next time.